They're playing the Game of Thrones music at Shoreline Amphitheater, which is, I guess it's like 3 hours of dum 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 with the
Well, you know,
pretty much.
just so.
Oh, look, we started the show, everyone. It's amazing that anyone made it to this theater because they're doing a Game of Thrones thing at Shoreline, and all the traffic around here is crazy because no one is accustomed to there being people on the road at 7:30 on a Thursday night. Right. By 7:30 on a Thursday night, traffic is only bad, not terrible, most of the time. And so when I pulled off the freeway, and they're doing a Game of Thrones thing at Shoreline, where they're playing the. I never watched Game of Thrones, except for I watched half of the first episode, and then because Loretta was watching it, and I was like, "Aren't they brother and sister?" And she's like, "Oh yes." And then I was like, "Okay, well, kinky." And then I saw the whole Hodor episode, which is like 5 seasons later. Everyone was like, the Hodor episode. And I was like, who's Hodor? And like, he's this guy that says Hodor. I'm like, well, okay. And they're like, but no, all he says is Hodor. And I'm like, oh, like Groot? And they're like, kind of like Groot. He says, like, that actor can convey a lot with the single word Hodor. Which, as it turns out, spoiler alert, is his shortening of hold the door, which happens in the future when he dies, because someone is screaming at it. Sorry, I've ruined Game of Thrones for you, for the 7 people that turned it off midway through the first episode because of the kinky brother-sister castle sex. Or I've given a whole bunch of you a whole new reason to go back and start at the beginning, because I think that happens I think that continues. But I don't know, because I've seen 1.5 episodes. Speaking of that, I don't want to forget this. We are, of course, broadcasting on Facebook, assuming Loretta pressed the Go Live on Facebook button in the booth, which it appears she did. So bully there. I will tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook. I hate Facebook because it's Facebook, and it's run by terrible people, and they're ruining the world. I've only got a half-hour show, so I can't go through them all. But on the other hand, it's also not that hard in the booth to go clicky, 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 and broadcast on Facebook. And then I go to Twitter, which I also hate. And then I post, I'm going to be live on the internet on Facebook. And then a couple people watch, and they type little comments as the show's going on, which I don't have time to read because I'm on TV, people. But afterwards, I read them all. I go through and I put a little thumbs up on them. I can't put a thumbs down on them because Mark Zuckerberg took thumbs down away from me back in like 2007. I could use a good thumbs down right now because there's a lot of stuff on Facebook that is on. Anyway, Facebook has this thing now where like you'll be in the app and it'll be like, hey, I think you're at this place. And I'm like, why are you stalking me, Facebook? Yeah, I'm at that place. And they're like, will you answer a couple questions? I'm just telling you, I'm a sucker for crowdsourced data. So like, I'm like, sure, I'll answer a couple questions. Make the world a tiny bit better. A tiny bit better on Facebook, but whatever. So I'm at Togo's, because on the way to the studio, I sit in my house and I order us sandwiches at Togo's. The Togo's, it's between our house and the station. And then we drive to the Togo's and I walk in and I say, hi, I'm that internet order guy. And they're like, yeah, you're here every month. We recognize you. I'm like, can I have my order? And they're like, here you are. And as I'm doing that, I look down at Facebook and it says, hey, it looks like you're at Togo's. And I'm like, again, Facebook, stop stalking me. It's creepy. But sure, I'll answer a couple questions. And then they're like, hey, is Togo's open until 9 o'clock on Friday? So I'm like, I'll walk outside and look at the damn hours sign. And I'll go, yes, they're open until 9 o'clock on Friday. I'll go, is this place good for groups? And I'm like, yes. I always say places are good for groups. I don't care. Like how would a place not be good for groups? I mean, they don't say how big of a group. And then they say, how expensive is Togo's? And they're like $1 sign, $2 sign. I'm like, how am I to judge this? I mean, I'm well off. So my definition of $1 sign versus $5 signs is probably different. $1 sign. Everything gets $1 sign. Why not? And a couple other questions. I remember the stupid question. So like, is this the phone number? And I'm like, really? No one calls anyone anymore, Facebook. You should know that. Like I still have a landline. It's not really a landline, it's a VoIP line, but it's a line in my house with a phone that plugs in next to my answering machine, and it rings. It doesn't, I don't hear it ring because I turned the ringer off like 3 years ago. But when the phone rings, it makes this very peculiar, it makes a little, and I'm like, oh, the phone's ringing. And then and then the answering machine will pick up, and then no one will talk because all of those calls are spam. Like no one ever calls me on my not actually a landline. Sometimes they'll leave a message. Frequently it's in Chinese.
Yes.
Whatever. I forget how I got on this topic of, he said, Togo. So like, is this Togo's phone number? Like no one is ever going to call Togo's to place an order. Anyone that would call you is a person with a cell phone. Anyone with a cell phone has a phone that could have the Togo's app or a web browser, and they could just type their darn little order into the Togo's app and then have a chance of getting it right, as opposed to me trying to say extra onions and then getting there and discovering that they've added 7 orders of onion chips or something like that. So I answer these questions for Togo's. I've already paid. I just realized I forgot to tip, so now I feel bad. But now I leave, I get here to the studio. That takes me 20 minutes tops to drive here. As I get here, I sit down in our green room, which is green, and I look at my phone, and Facebook says, hey, I'm going to show you this. Your contribution for Togo sandwiches helped 340 people. Like, really? In 20 minutes? 340 people had a burning question about whether Togo's was open till 9 o'clock on a Friday? Just waiting for me to answer? Just sitting by their phone like, I wonder if Togo's is open until 8 or 9 o'clock on Friday. It doesn't say here. It says for Thursday. It says for Wednesday. Tuesday? Monday, Friday, no one knows. If only there was a phone number here, we could call them and ask, but frickin' Facebook. They're just lying to me. They're lying to me about how good of a job I'm doing. Like, I bet I haven't helped anyone. I may not even know how setting the hours for Togo's on Facebook helps anyone. I mean, it seems to me Togo should set the hours for Togo's on Facebook. And then, like, they know what the hours are. They're not relying on me. And then they would know whether they're good for groups or not. Like, what if the manager of that Togo's hates groups? I don't know that. I'm not going to ask the person that. Like, that would be a weird question at the counter. Like, hey, weird question. Yes, I'd like onions. Weird question. Are you good for groups? And they're going to go, what? We're talking about sandwiches here. We're a sandwich place. We're not a place of assembly. We're not. Sorry, Togo's, Facebook. Who knows? Speaking of the internet, which I was, as you know, I buy almost everything on the internet because I hate people and I hate shopping. And the internet's convenient. And a couple of days ago, let's say I work for a large company. Let's say we make a lot of products. Let's say one of those products is a phone. Let's say I'm also married to a wife who has a very old phone, which I have on multiple occasions said, you should get a new phone. And then she'll say, I like this phone. And then I'll be like, but there are new phones. Because that's the kind of guy I am. I'm like, new phone? Why? good Lord, they announced it. You didn't order it before. But no, so I finally talked her into ordering a new phone, and then typey, hey, I'd like a new phone. And then Apple's like, okay, we'll mail you when the phone's gonna be delivered. And I was like, oh, good to know. A couple days go by. I'm like, we think it'll be around here. I'm like, whatever. Yesterday, I'm reading my email. And it's like, hey, shipping notice. Your stuff is gonna show up on Friday. So I'm like, woo! I'll tell the wife. She'll be excited. She's getting a new phone on Friday. That'll be something we can do Friday night. We can unbox the phone, and then we can plug the cables in, and then we can watch the progress bar slowly crawl across the screen as it copies apps from one phone to the other phone at, I don't know, pretty fast. Just it'll bump along. It'll be like, oh, look, it got past the L. Got past the second L. I mean, we used to put numbers under progresses. We don't do that anymore. I don't know why. And then last night, Loretta was like, oh, I looked at that email you sent me, and I was like, aren't you excited? You're getting your phone tomorrow? And she's like, I'm getting my phone case tomorrow. Still getting the phone in like 3 weeks. I'm like, why would you mail a case 3 weeks before a phone? Like no one needs the case before they have the phone. The case doesn't fit other phones. So now I'm upset because I had a whole evening planned around moving stuff from one phone to the other, and then we could go over all the new phone features. Like, oh look, it's got 3 camera lenses, just like razor blades. You know, it used to be razors had 2 blades, and then they had 3 blades, and that was 50% better than 2 blades. And then they were like, well, let's go with 4 blades. And I was like, wow, I'm throwing away all of those 3-blade razors. My face is going to be so 4-blade clean. Yeah. Okay. I previously talked about my feet. Turn off the phone now, or turn off the TV now if medicine disgusts you. I previously talked about, I used to jog a lot. And then one day I went out jogging and I came home, my foot hurt. And then it didn't stop hurting. I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, it's plantar fasciitis. I was like, how do you fix that? And she's like, you don't fix that. And then she gave me a shot, and it fixed it for a while. And then it came back. And I went back to the doctor. I said, it came back. She's like, yeah, that happens. I'm like, well, can you give me another shot? She's like, it won't work. I'm like, well, can you fix it? She's like, no, this isn't like cancer or something. This is just your foot hurts. We don't have anything for that. I was like, really? She's like, well, we can cut your foot open. We can cut that tendon in half. Then it'll stop hurting. I'm like, well, don't I need that tendon? She's like, no. I'm like, why would someone design something that has a tendon? She's like, people aren't designed. It just happened. Like, there's a tendon there. Who knows if you need it? We'll cut it. If you need it, well, there's nothing we can do. Once we cut it, we can't put it back together. So now my feet hurt a lot after I go running. So I haven't been running much. But as you know, I used to, like I would jog, and I would sign up for these races because it gave me a reason to think I should go out and run. Like, hey, I got a race in 6 weeks. I need to train for. Train for running. Like I learned to run when I was 6. And my skills haven't advanced any past that. Like I'm still running this, like one foot goes forward, then the other foot goes forward. There's nothing more to it than that. You start running, and if you don't stop, you are a successful runner. And if you do stop, you are a less successful runner. Until you get to the finish line. If you stop after the finish line, definition of success. Anyway, I signed up for a half marathon this Sunday. And I haven't really run very much. So I don't know if I'm going to run the half marathon on Sunday or not. Next month, maybe I'll tell you, unless you hear a loud scream, which is my feet really, really, really hurting at about mile 7. What else? Also on the drive here tonight, we drove past 3 people on bikes on the road with 0 lights whatsoever.
Oh, geez.
Lawrence Expressway, people do 60 miles an hour, and for some reason there's a bike lane, which terrifies me. I would never bike in the bike lane on Lawrence Expressway at 1 o'clock in the afternoon with no clouds in the sky, wearing fluorescent orange, because cars are going past me at 60 miles an hour, like here, like, oh look, car, oh look, car. But there's a guy on Lawrence Expressway with 0 lights, wearing a dark sweatshirt in the bike lane at 7:45 at night when it is pitch black already. For God's sakes, if you're gonna bike at night, put a bunch of lights on your bike. Like I should be able to see you from far away. Cars have lights, and cars are big. Bikes are tiny. They should have even more lights. Like my bike has, I think, 7 lights on it. You can see my. That was that. What else? We went up and saw this musical called Anastasia. Anastasia was some Russian princess. I kind of knew the name Anastasia. I didn't know the story. I was like, it's from that Disney cartoon. Not a Disney cartoon. Someone else made it. Like there was a cartoon and then they turned it into a musical, because of course they did. It had a lot of ballet in it. So first of all, I didn't like it. And secondly, it kept screaming like the czars of Russia were horrible people that were exploiting the peasants and sucking up all their wealth, but they were good looking. And so I'm supposed to feel bad for them that most of them got murdered during the Russian Revolution when all the poor people went, you know, we have all these pitchforks. Because every day we're out in the fields doing whatever you do with a pitchfork. I'm not clear on what you do with a pitchfork. I mean, maybe you move hay around, but like I would get a big pair of tweezers for that, but maybe I'm the wrong guy. Anastasia. Beautiful people in Russia. A tiny little girl, Anastasia, maybe she wasn't murdered when everyone else was murdered. Maybe she survived the revolution, got amnesia, lost her memory, eventually got spirited out of Russia to France where she met up with her grandmother. Maybe not. The one thing I thought after leaving the musical is I'm like, you know, today we have DNA. We would just know in like 3 minutes whether this amnesia person was Anastasia or not. We wouldn't have, there'd be no angst. Destination weddings. I had some friends get married, and they're like, hey, we're getting married. I was like, okay, I'll come. I'm like, well, we're getting married at Disneyland. I'm like, that's a destination wedding. They're like, yeah. I'm like, I have a thing against destination weddings. But you did say it's a Disneyland, and I have an exception for destination weddings at Disneyland. I suppose Disney World as well, although that's further away. So I will gladly come to your destination wedding, and I will watch for the 11 minutes it takes you to get married. Like I waited longer in line to check my bags than it took them to get married. Which is it's my biggest complaint about destination weddings. Like weddings should be really short, and preferably there should be 2 people there, and you should have paid each of them $5 to be a witness. And then afterwards, you should go have a party with free beer, or free booze, in my case, because cocktails. Anyway, we went to the destination wedding. The wedding was nice. It was fun. They had a lot of stuff. We didn't dance because, well, look at me. You know. The next day, we went to Disneyland, as you do if you're at Disneyland, staying in a Disneyland hotel, because Star Wars Land just opened and no one has seen it yet. So we did Disneyland things. We went to Star Wars Land. We bought both flavors of milk and the little things. and tried them. They're okay. Don't go there just for the milk. We did not go to the bar in Star Wars Land because the line was too long. And by the line is too long, I mean we would have had to buy tickets like 2 weeks beforehand for a specific time, and then arrange to be there at that specific time in order to wait in a long line to go to a bar at Disneyland. Or, and here this is going to sound crazy, people, or I could have just left Disneyland, walked down the street to my hotel, which has a bar in it, and then I could have had a drink. I could have finished the drink. I could have walked back into Disneyland, and then I could have said hi to my friends who had almost made it to the front of the line for the bar in Star Wars Land. And they're like, well, there are droids in there. And I'm like, they're puppets. They're like, Disneyland is full of puppets. We could go see the talking parrot puppets. There's a much shorter line for that. And they sing. Do the droids sing? They're like, no, they talk droid. I'm like, why do droids have different languages? Did anyone ever wonder that? Like they built C-3PO, who speaks all of the dialects of droid. Seems it would have been much simpler just to program all the droids to speak the same dialect. Then you don't need a annoying copper-colored robot to be snarky. I don't know how I got onto Star Wars there, other than Star Wars Land. While we were at Disneyland, Loretta lost her wedding ring, which made us sad, because technically they weren't even our wedding rings. Like, we bought them after we'd been together a couple of years, and then after we got married, we just declared them our wedding rings, because it was easier than going to buy actual wedding rings. And she thought it might have fallen out of her thing when she was pushing herself around in a wheelchair or something. So we came back. We filed a missing ring report. And I said, "What are the chances someone's going to find this?" And the person was like, "Not good." But they didn't say that. What they said was, "Oh, most things are not found," which is another. So time went by. Like every day they would mail me, you would go, "We didn't find your ring." And I'm like, you got to phrase this better. And then eventually they, like 2 weeks later, they're like, "We didn't find your ring. We're not going to look for it anymore." And I'm like, "What? Why can't you keep looking for it?" I didn't ask him that because it was email. I was just staring at my screen. I was like, "Couldn't you, it's been like 10 days, for God's sakes. Give it a little time." But now they, so then I'm reading my email a couple days later, and then I get an email. It's like, "Hey, did you lose a ring at Disneyland? Because I found one." And I was like, "This is a weird spam." But
Yeah.
sure, I did lose a ring at Disneyland. So I was like, "Yes, I did. It kind of would have looked like this." And the guy was like, "Hey, I found your ring." And then I was like, "Well, this is very weird." Because it wasn't Disneyland that found it. It was like a guy who works at Disneyland that found it. And then he looked inside the ring where we had our names engraved years and years ago. And then he typed my name into Google and found me, which is why everyone should have unique names. Like if your first name is John, you lose your wedding ring at Disneyland, you are doomed. Whereas if your first name is Keith and your last name is Statenfield, apparently you have a reasonably good chance of someone typing that into Google and finding you, and then me being like, "Hey, that is our wedding ring." And he's like, "Great, I'll mail it to you." And I was like, "Do you want anything?" First I figured maybe he's going to try and ask for a bunch of cash, and then he didn't, which just made me happy about humanity briefly. Then I watched the news, and then I thought back, and I was like, "Okay, let's say 90% of everyone is trash." But we've got a really nice guy at Disneyland. And then we waited, and the ring didn't show up. And then I started to be like, "Well, you can't pressure a guy that is offered to mail back your wedding ring for free. Like, you can't. It's not doable. So you just gotta wait." And then eventually this envelope showed up with a ring in it, and I was like, my faith in humanity is restored. And then I watched the news, and then my faith in humanity was gone again, except for that one guy at Disneyland who's a great guy. So we sent him a nice card, and I sent him a gift certificate. I said, go see a bunch of movies. Or something else. Like, I was going to buy him a movie pass. And I was like, but what if he hates movies? I mean, he works at Disneyland. He might despise entertainment, for all I know. What else? We've been trying to clean our house. I've mentioned this in the past. I will be mentioning this for the rest of my life. My plan A for cleaning my house is, I have no idea how that fire started. But you tend to go to jail for that plan. So I'm stuck with plan B, which is actually put in the effort to clean my house. And lately, we were just going like, hey, let's look at the linen closet and ask ourselves, do we need 5 sets of twin sheets when we no longer own a single twin-sized bed? And the answer is no, we do not. So we put the 5 twin sheets in a bag to go to Goodwill, where I assume they will pitch it into a landfill, because nobody needs twin sheets. This is America. No one fits in a twin bed anymore. We have a closet full of medicine, and I was like, it's very messy, because stuff just keeps falling off the shelves, and I don't know what we have in there. So I'm like, I'm going to take everything out, and then we'll sort it, and I'll find a way to fit it all back in. And as I'm taking stuff out, I'm like, I know you put expiration dates on things, and stuff doesn't actually expire. Like, if you get aspirin and it says expires 8 of 2019, you can still take that aspirin in September of 2018, and you'll be fine. But if you have contact cleaner, which says expires March 2001. I do not think you should unseal that never open box of contact cleaner and take a big swig of that saline and squirt it into your contacts and not assume that you're going to go blind the moment it touches your eyes. So after throwing away all the medicines which expired in the last decade during the George Bush presidency, and buying little plastic things to sort them and putting stuff back in. The medicine cabinet's half empty now. We're out of time, people. I'm not going to get to the Front-a-Lot show. I won't talk about working at Apple 30 years. I'm going to talk about the Monikers card. I bought this on Kickstarter. I've never played it. I don't even know what it is, but I threw it in the bag as, hey, maybe someday you'll talk about that on the show. Goodbye, everyone. Nice to see you. See you in, I don't know if we might take it.